Welcome to Booze and Bourbon, a podcast where we talk about all things paranormal, and bourbon too. Now, here are your two ghostess hostesses with the mostest, Kim and Jen.
Welcome back, guys, to Booze and Bourbon. I'm Jen, and this is Kim.
Howdy.
Howdy.
I guess maybe it's because our episode has something to do with Tennessee. But I don't know why I said howdy, so that's totally weird. Anyway, so you've been good?
Yeah, you know, it's the new year and just lots of gym goers out there, so getting a lot done at the old gymnasium. And how about yourself?
Oh, I've been good. I'm really excited to get back to filming, and I selfishly get to spend the whole week with you, so I'm really excited with that too.
Yes. We covered my favorite person, Marilyn, there.
Yeah.
But I was putting away my Christmas stuff and realized that my mom every year, for as long as I can remember, has always gotten me a Marilyn calendar, and I have it sitting right here, along with a new Marilyn ornament for my tree, because I already had one. So it was just funny that it came out, like, I got all that, and I forgot about it, and then remembered when we did our episode. I'm like, wait, I have even more stuff now to add to my Marilyn collection.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that you appreciated me putting your face on Marilyn Monroe.
That was the best. That was a dream come true, really.
So my friend Jay, I don't know if you saw any of the comments, but he commented underneath and he was like, I thought that Marilyn really looked a lot like Jen in that photo. And then I realized.
Jay, you're not alone, because when I first watched it, it took me a minute because I was like, that's not Marilyn, but it looks like, who does that look like? And then I was like, oh my God, dummy, it's you. Like, I was like, she put your face on there. And I was like, totally thrown off. It took me a minute. It took me a couple minutes to get it.
Okay. What do you think about like ghosts and spiritual stuff and energy when there's like a big body of water? Do you feel like it might amplify it?
Yes. I just think there's something about, like, at night, like the water itself, like whether it's a lake or the ocean, it just kind of draws you in to keep staring at it. And sometimes your eyes play tricks on you and you think you see things, and especially if there's like steam coming off the water, it just has this like eerie atmosphere sometimes, and like I just feel like that also kind of amplifies it. But the energy itself that's within the water, I feel like would be a huge, like you said, conductor for paranormal and for spirits.
Yeah.
So
well, when you think about apparently like some of the most haunted houses, they sometimes have like a weird little brook river thing, like an underground spring underneath of them, or they have one of those creepy ass cisterns like that house that we investigated. That's going to be the one where the Stephen King Chapelwaite is filmed. You know what I'm talking about?
oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, it should be interesting to dive into this topic today. Are spirits attracted to water? We're going to dive into it and find out. But before we go any further, we do have this, not bourbon. This is really crazy for us because we've never done this before. But
branching out.
we're definitely branching out. This is a single malt Scotch whiskey, and this one is made by Glenfiddich, and it's their Bourbon Barrel Reserve. So what's really cool about this one is it's aged in ex-bourbon casks, which gives a completely different taste to it. So if you're a bourbon drinker, not so much a Scotch drinker, this might be a good one for you to get into to see if you like Scotch. We are sitting at 86 proof on this guy. And I'm going to pop this cork. That was weak.
Still had a little echo to it, though. Still good.
So it's definitely lighter in color than your typical bourbon would be. Let's see what I can find out about it. It is a 14-year-old whiskey. and it's matured in 2 types of American oak barrels. The ex-bourbon casks are the bedrock, giving an indulgent richness and sweetness after 14 years. And then they shake it awake in a deep-charred, newly oaked barrel for a vivid and vibrant punch of vanilla. And that's the thing about bourbon, is it's always in a brand new charred oak barrel. So I still smell some scotch in there, but I definitely smell bourbon. I do smell like the vanilla and the sweetness. So now I'm going to give it a little taste.
Oh,
I'm not a huge scotch fan, mostly because I don't like the peatiness. And this one, not a whole lot of peatiness to it. So it is very easily sipped. I don't think you need ice or anything like that. Although maybe if you did have ice, it would be like really dessert sweet. Anyway, I like it. So that brings me to the next segment of our show.
yeah.
Would you rather?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I would definitely rather be drinking some of that than the smoothie that I'm drinking right now. But I'll just have to wait till I see you.
Jen is our fitness missus right now. She is cutting out the bad things in her life.
Bourbon is never bad, but I am trying to cut it out until at least next Saturday. Just a whole, we'll try it one step at a time.
That's right. That's right. Good for you. Good for you. You're being a very good role model for other people.
Yes.
Question. This comes from a nightmare that I had last night.
Oh, perfect.
So I had this nightmare. Let me just play this out. I had 2 really f***ed up nightmares. I'm just going to say that. Mm-hmm. So the first one, would you rather be in a basement room of a haunted bed and breakfast with really old dark green wallpaper, and the only thing in the room is a bed, and after you fall asleep, you wake up to a 3-foot shoebill gray bird with a receipt in its mouth, and when it bumps you, the receipt says, "Haha, you fell asleep." Or
what?
Yeah. Or, I swear to God, this has to do with water. Would you rather take a diving course and go to the beach and see the 2 girls who just passed the diving course decide to go diving, and they go over by a kind of sketchy area where there's a lot of seaweed, and they get sucked into the hole. And all I could do was try to grab for one of their hands, but it sucked them totally in. So would you rather be awoken by the 3-foot evil bird saying, "Haha, you fell asleep," or watch somebody get sucked into a suck hole? That's not even the right word. That's just what I imagine it being, is a suck hole.
Yes. But I'm not getting sucked in. I'm just watching them get sucked in.
Yeah. You try to help, but you can't.
I mean, that's definitely going to play on the conscience for some time.
Yes.
Might be a little scarring.
Yes.
I feel like I could wrestle a bird. I could definitely wrestle a 3-foot bird to the ground. So I think I'm just going to fight the bird. I'm going to go with the bird.
Okay.
With the creepy note.
Jen versus Shoebill. I see it coming up. It's going to be like a Mike Tyson event.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. So, for your side, would you rather have passed in water? So now you're kind of stuck there. You don't leave the water.
Okay.
It is the ocean.
Yeah.
So you have free range to travel all of the ocean whenever you please. You can just venture as deep as you can go.
Ooh.
Or the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you are a ghost in space and you are stuck up there, just in outer space, traveling around, checking out the many sights to be seen.
I feel like either way, it's dark, and
It is.
we know more about space than we do the ocean. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really weird to me because it's part of this planet. If I was in the ocean, the good thing about that would be that I would be able to like go to a tropical oasis and like hang out in the water that's like a lagoony beach. Like it would be
Right.
And I also feel like if I was in space, I'd be very lonely, just kind of like looking at Earth, knowing that that's where I have bad FOMO. So I'd be like, that's where everyone is. And that's where like the party is. Whereas if I was in the ocean, I'd still be here on Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
So water death it is. So now that we have that out of the way, we're going to talk a little tiny bit about what our topic is today. Just a little teaser before we go to break. So, it's been said that the rushing of water and the coinciding rushing of energy can affect how much paranormal activity you have in your home. Some paranormal investigators believe water is a powerful draw for ghosts, as do I, and it sounds like you do too, Jen. Mm-hmm. For example, Susan Bove, who's the founder of South Jersey Paranormal Research, once explained that, like the living, ghosts are attracted to the water, which also totally makes sense, like what you were talking about being attracted to the water. Mm-hmm. And her, along with several actually researchers, say that water is a fantastic energy conductor and ghosts absorb their strength from wherever they can. So if they have the option to exist near large amounts of it in the form of rivers, lakes, or oceans, all the better. It's pretty cool.
Also, there's a large amount of ghosts who are classified as being spirits who live in water, and people have been mentioning them for centuries. Mm-hmm. Usually, death in water occurs due to drowning, either accidental and unforeseen, or forced or self-chosen, as in suicides. Bodies of those who were murdered are also sometimes thrown into large bodies of water. Now, that part I forgot about, but that is also true. In the majority of such cases, the soul is in distress and disoriented, which weakens the soul force necessary to ascend to this astral world, which is actually very sad when you think about it. Like, that's really sad. Mm-hmm. If it is a mass tragedy, spirit guides are often too few to make the shocked souls come to terms with their deaths and guide them to the higher realms. In the case of those who die in inland floods or are swept away by tsunamis, which we talked about previously, sometimes those bodies are not found. The tragedy that their families are so shocked and upset about this, that they are also unable to perform the prescribed rituals which would make the soul's journey easier. Consequently, this is why many people who die a watery death and appear as ghosts generally do so near the spot they died. Worldwide, there are thousands of legends and stories about haunted waterways, lagoons, swamps, wells, springs, lakes, rivers, canals, ponds, and seas, and we're going to tell you all about them.
Ooh! Yeah, so just after the break, we're going to get into some pretty haunted and super creepy places that are haunted solely because of the water surrounding them. You're welcome. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The Tennessee River Gorge was a water hazard with many unpredictable water levels as well. And the most notorious hazard above all was a whirlpool, which was named the Suck. Oh my gosh, suck holes. There you go.
Yes.
And it's said that Native Americans who lived on the land could see the souls of their ancestors being sucked into the massive pool. They also believed that anyone who got close enough to the whirlpool would get sucked in by their ancestors who had already died, which is totally creepy too. The construction of the dam began in 1905 by the initial contractor, William J. Oliver and Company. The dam was built on what was once Cherokee territory and was the country's first hydroelectric dam. Following the signing of the Treaty of the Sycamore Shoals on March 17, 1775, War Chief Dragon Canoe cursed the land, vowing that it was dark and bloody land and would be unproductive and uninhabitable for anyone that was attempted to settle there. The Cherokees also believed the water where the dam was built was sacred. The dam was originally scheduled for completion in 1909. However, the engineers faced numerous difficulties, including a weak limestone foundation, which plagued the dam for the next 40 years. By 1910, only the lock and powerhouse, both on the opposite sides of the river, had been completed. By November 13, 1913, the dam was completed in its totality. Originally, the dam was estimated to cost about $2 million, but the final bill was actually closer to $10 million, or $237 million in today's value. So soon after the dam's completion, leaks began to appear, and the engineers had chosen the location of the dam because the river was narrow, but unknown to them at the time was that the ground beneath the river was actually limestone. So portions of the limestone continually collapsed and resettled, which ended up shifting the dam's foundation and causing cracks to form in the dam walls. So then in 1963, TEPCO, which is the Tennessee Power Company, determined that continuing to expand, repair, and maintain Hales Bar Lock Dam would be too expensive and commissioned a new dam to be built 6 miles downstream. The new dam was christened the Nickajack Dam, and upon completion, Hales Bar Dam and Lock were demolished, but the powerhouse is still sitting in the river, partially flooded. Several hundred workers perished during the construction of the Hales Bar Dam. These deaths were expected in such a large project in those days. However, there were 11 deaths after its completion that included children. There was a dimly lit tunnel that ran underneath the dam that kids had to go pass through each day to get to school. That does not sound safe.
Mm-mm.
It is said that at least 2 children perished during one of the leaks in the tunnel. The narrow tunnel served as a common passage across the river for not only the children, but the workers as well. In the 1960s, the dam suffered a catastrophic failure, flooding the downstream area and disrupting hundreds of graves, mainly those of the children that had perished during the Spanish flu epidemic of the 1920s. That is so awful. So no bodies were actually removed from the cemetery prior to the flooding and up until the late 90s, like recently. And you could see 3 headstones peering out from the water 70 yards from the bank where Dry Creek empties into the lake. And they are the marked graves of Henry, Moses, and Sarah Long. Henry died in 1875 and Sarah in 1860. And Moses's birth is noted as November 25th, 1880, but the date of his death is illegible. So today there is very little left inside of the structure at Hales Bar Dam. The first 2 floors are underwater, and the Hales Bar Dam and Marina uses the turbine level as a dry dock and storage area. One of the original turbines is still in place, and there's a natural whirlpool of constantly swirling water. And currently, the marina actually offers haunted tours and boat rentals and floating cabins on the lake. So, this brings me to the real ghost stories. Some say that the souls are of the workers and the children and the buried whose graves flooded among the spirits that continue to haunt the site. So some examples include workers who were supposedly trapped in the walls during its construction, men who drowned during those first few years, the spirits of the Cherokee natives, including Chief Dragon Canoe, who still haunts the property, a presence called Chris, an alleged young murdered girl named Linda, and apparitions from the school children who haunt the tunnels. And then paranormal groups who've investigated the site include some of my favorites, like Amy and Adam from Kindred Spirits. But previous to them, Zach with Ghost Hunters checked out the dam. In Season 5, Episode 1, and Aftershocks, Season 1, Episode 23, Aaron reported experiencing his vest being tugged, and at the same time, an entity or dark mass was captured by their thermo imaging camera on the catwalk. And they also captured numerous EVPs in the tunnels, ones that say, "I'm gonna shoot you all. Let me come over. Come on in, okay? You're and unexplained child and female voices."
Wow.
Wow is right. So then Ghost Hunters, Season 8, Episode 3, they were in the powerhouse, and Grant and Jason were both touched on their faces by an invisible force. They also heard sniffling, bangs, and shuffling sounds. And in the control room, Grant and Jason heard sounds like a person approaching, footsteps, and talking. And upon further analysis, they caught the sound of a Native American flute and voices on the recordings. So many paranormal groups have reported their shirts being pulled and their hair tousled by an apparition, and others have experienced cold chills at the dead end portion of the tunnel. And another location with alleged experiences is the third floor, where several playing cards were placed on the edge of a table, and the spirit was asked to knock off a specific card, but not the others. So I want to go. Do you want to go on like a floating cabin and ghost tour?
Yeah, absolutely.
Down on the river.
Well, on to another fun story. One day, a new settler to the area, a Mr. Lynch, was digging a well on his property to provide badly needed water to his family, crops, and livestock. Upon completion of the well, the Lynches discovered the water to be too foul-smelling to be drinkable. After some time, however, Miss Lynch began to taste the smelly water and claimed that it cured her arthritis. The Lynches discovered the water to be enriched with minerals, lending it prime medicinal value for the time. It didn't take long for the word to get out among the few locals that the waters had healing powers. By 1888, a third well was dug. It was from this well that a, quote, demented woman, end quote, would sometimes drink from. Those who knew her claimed she had regained her sanity from drinking the miraculous water. It was at this time that a few of the local children began to call well number 3 the crazy water well. After time, the word well was dropped and the name Crazy Water was coined and the official town of Edenvale was established, but later changed its name to Mineral Wells.
I like that name for a town.
Yeah, Mineral Wells. Sounds very pleasant. By the early 1900s, Mineral Wells was on its way to becoming a national health resort as bathhouses and spas popped up all over the valley. People were coming by the hundreds every week to bath in or drink the healing waters. Many accommodations, such as hotels and boarding houses, were springing up everywhere. In 1912, the city saw the need for a luxury hotel and decided to build one on the site of Old Well Number 3. Hence, the Crazy Water Hotel was born.
Love it.
The 4-story structure, yeah, sounds like a fun place. The 4-story structure was completed in 1914 and operated until March 1925, when a tragic fire completely destroyed the hotel. 2 years later, two Dallas businessmen, Carr and Hal Collins, rebuilt a new 7-story structure on the site of the old one, keeping the same name. The new structure had 2 complete bathhouses located in the basement, electric elevators, a huge and lavish lobby, 200 rooms, and a spacious enclosed pavilion of semi-Moorish design. The Crazy Water Hotel was a beautiful sight during the 1920s and 1930s, as over 100,000 people a year visited the city for the mineral waters. At the end of the 1940s, the days of the mineral waters were numbered, and mineral wells would never enjoy the fabulous times that it saw earlier in the century. By the 1980s, many of the old hotels and boarding houses had either burned down, fallen down, or were completely torn down, but the old Crazy Water survived and was converted into a retirement center and remains so to this day. But it's haunted AF.
Ha, I bet.
And now it's only going to be more haunted because of the old folk dying there.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the paranormal side of this place. In the early 90s, reconstruction of the kitchen area on the first floor took place. Since that time, the figure of a small child has been seen on many occasions. Amy Harris, an employee of the Crazy Water, reported that one morning in 1994, she was in the kitchen panning bacon for the residents at breakfast when suddenly, just to her left, stood a little girl in an old-fashioned pink frilly dress with white stockings, standing with her hands perched on the side of the table watching Amy at work. Amy said she was there for just a few seconds and then suddenly disappeared. Then at Christmas, 1999, Amy was entering the kitchen area from the dining room when she was suddenly overcome with a cold chill as if something passed right through her. Isabel Hernandez, another Crazy Water employee, stated that a little girl's spirit, who has called her Dizzy, a nickname that only her family knows, frequently follows her around in the kitchen. On another occasion, she felt someone touch her while she was serving food in the serving line. She said at first the little ghost scared her, but over the years she has gotten used to it. Another employee by the name of Walter has reported hearing the little girl sobbing in the basement, and then upon investigating the cries, felt a cold spot in the area where he heard the sounds originating from. Joyce Landon, another Crazy Water employee, claims she too has seen a little girl playing in the kitchen area, as has Linda Ruiz, who reported in April 2000 she saw a man in the kitchen wearing a long trench coat, as if he walked out of the 1930s or 1940s.
Ooh.
He too was there for just a short time and then vanished. Several of the employees have heard the sounds of voices and of the little girl in the basement area located just under the kitchen. Curtis, the maintenance man, reported seeing the little girl near the elevators in the basement. The basement area is part of the old Crazy Water Hotel that burned down in 1925, and the old brick walls still bear the charred remains of the original building. Who exactly could these spirits be? No one seems to know. The building has been here for 75 years, and it's almost impossible to know all the stories that took place here. But one thing is for sure, these ghosts have been seen by several witnesses and didn't seem to be here before the reconstruction of the kitchen area. Whatever the cause of, whoever the people are, it is for sure that something strange is going on in the kitchen of the historic Crazy Water Hotel in downtown Mineral Wells.
Whoa. That's wild. Okay, so the other thing that gets me about all that is that you've had some upticks in hauntings in your house. I don't mean to jinx you, but I'm thinking it has to do with renovations. So maybe the renovations really brought this about, plus the fact that it's like right on top of an old well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It definitely has something to do with, I feel like when you start digging up things, you start reconstructing buildings over ones that were, maybe torn down or burnt down. You don't always know a full story behind what was there, or like what exactly happened in these places. So there's always the chance that something might have happened that wasn't great. And that's what's actually stirring it back up, maybe, like when you start tearing things down and digging. So
icky. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, you're right. Like you start uncovering things that nobody really knew about. So that's crazy.
But I mean, I do wish we had a, maybe youth wells. COVID curing wells.
COVID curing wells. That'd be awesome. People would be lined up for days. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps up today's episode, all about spirits attracted to water. I totally think they are. It's very creepy. It's a weird concept, but it's cool. So if you liked this episode and you want to hear more of Booze and Bourbon, you should definitely go and subscribe. But Jen, where can people listen to more of us, and where can they find us? Where can they stalk us, really?
My favorite would be Instagram.
Yeah.
It's the easiest place to stalk people. We are on Insta, Booze and Bourbon. We are also on Facebook, Booze and Bourbon, the podcast. We are on YouTube. We also can be found pretty much anywhere that podcasts are played on any lovely little app. We are part of the ABV network, so you can find us there as well. And we have a very cool store, the Redbubble store, where we have lots of very fun gear like Booze and Bourbon socks.
We will be back for a brand new episode next Friday. So until then, stay spooky.
Bye, guys.
Booze and Bourbon is part of the ABV network. For more information or to advertise on the show, please head over to abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.